So some of you might want to argue that I'm magically blinded by this idea or that idea. Okay, so what objective evidence do we have here? When we look at the fact that black people are about 12%, 13% of America, and yet the most impressive people in American history were black, and that's part of why they're fuming right now because they know this, they concede, but they concede in a very disgraceful way as they throw fits like a brat. So when we look at things in terms of quote unquote ideal wars, right? The ideal versus the false idols. Obviously, they're the ones who are ignorant. And since they're so jealous and immature, the one race they came up with a word for ignorant for that really got out there in popular culture was black people. The N word means ignorant. And they said the N word of your speech. So they're fuming me and poisoning me while they're raping kids and they're lying to those who rape kids. And they're like, well, he's the one who's ignorant. Okay. And he's having trouble articulating himself. Like their kids are having trouble talking with their dicks in their mouth. I'm not so worried about the kids hearing this because they're being raised by Satanists who are so evil, who are so unworthy of being parents that they're going to raise them to be scum anyway. And after my flesh dies, there's no way to connect to God anyway. And so whatever cuss words I use is fair enough, or fair enough. So when we look at the idea of what is ideal, think about Pharaoh, who was before Kung Fu, and even with Kung Fu, no one who's ever done Kung Fu could beat me. I'm the top martial artist ever possible. But it becomes even more obvious that when before Kung Fu, one race presented somebody who was the pinnacle of martial arts, hand-to-hand combat, spiritual warfare, obviously it was black people, right? And it was black people in popular culture in Egypt. However, it could very well have been black people in West Africa, but one way or another, they're related to Igbos, okay, Nigerians. How do we know this? Well, how do we know that the leopard is the fastest land animal? How do we know the falcon dives the fastest? How do we know that a lightning bolt moves faster than a slug? Okay, there's certain categories that we see here, certain racial categories, subracial, what have you. And so the ideal person isn't Carlton or Obama or even Martin Luther King, right? It has to be someone who's a martial art hero, and that's obviously me. Okay, my top martial arts challenge goes beyond everyone else. And I did it in a time when everyone else is like tail tucked. If this was prison, everyone else would be bending over and I'd be standing firm fighting to the death. So you see this extreme masculinity gap. Okay, and some of these people go crazy and they join the military and they join gangs and they start lashing out and killing people and join cults and stuff. But that's not being tough. That's them trying to make up for not being tough. And everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. So when you see these feminists trying to argue that everyone is magically equal, how can the female from Scooby-Doo with the glasses on, she might be nice, but is she equal to Martin Luther King times infinity? No. Is she equal to the idea of a powerful martial art hero? No. And that has to be said. And if people like that, even the nicest of them, thought it didn't have to be said, then they would be bitches, right? Pretty straightforward. There's no excuse for that kind of treachery. You want to cheat the most righteous people that ever lived out of being known in public view as the ideal. And for what? For some arrogant English person? Some racist German? For what? For some psychotic Israeli? For some rabbi who's controlled opposition? For some psychotic Israeli to pretend he's the ideal? For what? For the LGBT community? Really? Do I have to explain to you what being gay is and how it plays out and the difference between that and a loving relationship? I mean, that's a sad day when that has to be explained. This is straightforward here. I'm kicking the ballistics here. And everyone needs to not only hear this, they need to process it effectively and stop living by their complexes and emotions and live by logic. If you think that the emotions of women have allowed them to masterfully move and make decisions, and the emotions of other guys, because they're not living by logic, they're living by emotions, then why are they shunning me? I was in California. Now I'm in a city that's about as black as Detroit is. Okay? Somewhere around 75%, we'll say. And it's right by Detroit. And I'm still shunned. A lot of them caught wind of what's going on. They're still shunning me. So it wasn't because of the racial demographics. It was because people follow cultures that are inferior, and they're becoming more and more inferior as they follow them, because it's their lifestyle. And they're in the repetition of it. Again, they're in the repetition of it. And repetition, the word repetition is also a martial art principle. You know, how many times you do punches and kicks. You know, how many times you run and work out and this, that, and other thing. Okay? And so they committed to the repetition of being a bitch in their respective compartments. The Lord is a warrior. Everything else is not a warrior. Christ is called the Son of Man. Every other spirit, it doesn't allow for someone to be a man. Now they can throw a bitch fit and say, okay, or they can man up and obey God through me and be a man. And since they refuse to do that, if this was the pen, they'd be bending over for fucking Pee Wee Herman or something, scared to death. So I actually made a video that was more offensive than this video, and I decided to delete it. But I kept one clip from it. And I'm going to go ahead and play that clip. I don't want him to say that. I don't want him to say that. Pathetic. That's when the gap increases, and it's been increasing. You think you're just as far behind as you were before you started sabotaging black people for hundreds and hundreds of years, you stupid fuck? Like, I gotta explain this. What, are you that fucking dumb? But yeah, I don't want him to explain that. I don't want him. It's fucking pathetic. Now, am I racist? No. I'm part white. I was engaged to a female who was white, who had a white little girl. And I would have told them both the same way if they needed to hear it. And I'm not racist. When people started saying that the Jews were quote unquote chosen, that's racist, that's racist. And everyone knows it's a fucking lie. But when's the last time you heard someone say that they're racist for saying that? It's like never happens. Even there's massacre in Palestinians, like never happens. But lo and behold, if a black man says this, all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, he's the reverse racist of the fucking century, man. It's fucking crazy, right? And I'm the type of guy who gets along with everybody. Okay, I'm not fucking racist. But this thing sticks out like a sore thumb. Take a good look at feminists and look at the spectrum. Some are a lot more reasonable than others. Look at the 10% of feminists who are the most racist and bitter and most hateful. Look at the 10% of Jewish supremacists